Stop scrolling for just a moment. If this message has found you today, perhaps it has arrived for a reason. This is a timeless collective reading, so allow yourself to take only what resonates with your heart and gently leave the rest behind. Now imagine this. Someone who loves you has been carrying a question they have never spoken out loud. They know your smile. They know your voice. They know the way you comfort others even when you're carrying your own burdens. But there has always been one mystery they couldn't solve. Who were you before they met you? That single question quietly grew inside their heart until one day curiosity became impossible to ignore. Without telling you, they arranged a private meeting with a psychic who was known for helping people understand difficult emotions and hidden truths. They expected stories about your childhood, your past relationships, or perhaps old wounds that had never fully healed. Instead, the moment the psychic touched your photograph, everything changed. She became completely silent. The peaceful smile on her face slowly disappeared. The room suddenly felt heavier, almost as if the air itself had paused. She closed her eyes for only a few seconds before quickly pulling her hand away from the picture. Your soulmate immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" they asked. But the psychic didn't answer. Instead, she stared at your photograph with a look of disbelief, as though she had encountered something she had never experienced before. After a long silence, she whispered softly, "This person has walked through storms that most people would never survive, and somehow they still choose kindness." Those words echoed through the room. Your soulmate had expected secrets. Instead, they received admiration. The psychic continued in a voice filled with quiet respect. "I don't sense darkness around this soul. I don't sense deception. What I feel is someone who has carried invisible weight for years without asking anyone to carry it for them." Your soulmate's heart began beating faster because every word sounded familiar. They remembered the times you smiled while hiding your own sadness, the moments you comforted others even when your own heart needed healing. The way strangers seemed to trust you within minutes of meeting you. None of it had ever made sense before. The psychic gently placed both hands on the table. "Has this person ever told you they sometimes feel different from everyone else?" Your soulmate nodded immediately. Many times you had quietly admitted that certain places felt strangely familiar. Sometimes you sensed problems before they happened. Sometimes you felt emotions that didn't even belong to you. You always brushed those feelings aside, calling them coincidence. But perhaps they weren't. The psychic looked toward the window where soft sunlight filled the room. "Some people spend their entire lives searching for purpose," she said. "But every once in a while, purpose finds someone long before they recognize it." Those words made your soulmate think differently about everything. They began remembering countless moments they had forgotten. How children naturally smiled at you. How elderly people often shared their life stories with you after only a few minutes. How friends always called you first whenever life became difficult. It wasn't because you had every answer. It was because people felt safe around you. The psychic smiled gently. "Do you know why people are drawn to this person?" Your soulmate slowly shook their head. "Because they don't make people feel judged. They make people feel seen." Silence filled the room again. The psychic closed her eyes once more. This time her expression softened. "I don't believe this soul entered your life to impress you. I believe they entered your life to transform you." Those words touched something deep inside your soulmate. They realized they had spent so much time trying to understand your past that they had almost overlooked the beauty of your present. Every act of kindness, every quiet sacrifice, every moment you chose love instead of resentment. The psychic continued, "Your relationship wasn't created by accident. It was built one ordinary choice at a time. Every conversation, every apology, every act of forgiveness, every decision to stay when walking away would have been easier." Your soulmate suddenly understood why your connection always felt different. It had never been about perfection. It had always been about growth. Before leaving, they asked one final question. "So, who is this person really?" The psychic smiled with peaceful certainty. "I cannot tell you exactly who they are. No one can fully explain another person's soul. But I can tell you this. This person reminds others that goodness still exists. And in today's world, that is a rare gift." Your soulmate walked out carrying more questions than answers. Yet strangely, they felt lighter. As they looked at your photograph again, they noticed something they had never appreciated before. Not your appearance, not your smile, not even your eyes. They noticed the quiet peace they always felt whenever they were with you. For the first time, they stopped asking, "What is this person's secret?" Instead, they began asking, "What kind of person am I becoming because I met them?" Sometimes, that is the question that changes everything. Because real love isn't about solving someone like a puzzle. It is about appreciating every chapter you are privileged enough to witness. And your story was only beginning. The following morning, your soulmate couldn't stop thinking about what they had heard. Every sentence spoken by the psychic replayed in their mind. They remembered your laughter, the way you always listened without interrupting, the way you encouraged people even when no one was encouraging you. For the first time, they wondered how much of your own pain had remained hidden behind your kindness. A few days later, they gathered the courage to ask you a simple question. Have you ever felt like your life had a purpose you couldn't explain? You smiled gently, not because the question surprised you, but because it felt strangely familiar. You looked out the window for a moment before quietly answering, I've felt that way since I was very young. When someone is hurting, I can't pretend not to notice. I don't know why, I just can't. Your soulmate sat silently, remembering every word the psychic had spoken. At that moment, they realized this wasn't about mystery anymore. It was about understanding. That evening, they returned to the psychic one last time. This time, they didn't bring another photograph. They brought only one question. Why did our paths cross? The elderly woman smiled warmly. I've been waiting for you to ask that. She slowly opened an old journal that looked as though it had been with her for decades. Most of the pages were filled with handwritten reflections. She turned to a blank page and softly said, People often come here wanting to know who someone really is, but very few ask who they are becoming because of the people they love. She looked directly into your soulmate's eyes. Maybe this connection wasn't sent to change them. Maybe it was sent to change you. Those words settled deeply into their heart. On the journey home, they didn't think about destiny. They thought about gratitude. They remembered the times you forgave them, the moments you stayed patient, the days you quietly supported them without asking for recognition. Slowly, they realized something beautiful. They had spent so much time searching for extraordinary signs that they had almost overlooked the extraordinary person standing beside them every day. From that moment forward, everything changed. They began paying attention to the little things, the way you always remembered birthdays, the way you noticed when someone looked sad, the way you thanked strangers, the way you carried your own disappointments with quiet dignity. One rainy evening, while sitting together in peaceful silence, they asked another question. Do you ever get tired of always being the strong one? You looked down. For a few seconds, you couldn't answer. Then you whispered, Sometimes I wish someone would ask how I'm doing before asking what I can do for them. Your soulmate felt tears gathering in their eyes, because for the first time, they truly saw you, not as someone who never struggled, but as someone who kept choosing kindness despite every struggle. That night, they opened a notebook. On the very first page, they wrote, Things I never noticed before. The first sentence underneath read, They don't need someone to rescue them. They need someone who remembers they are human. Days passed. Love between you became quieter, but stronger. There was less guessing, less fear, less searching for hidden meanings, and much more appreciation. Then one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Your soulmate found an old envelope tucked inside a book. There was no name, no address, only a single handwritten sentence. The greatest answers are found where compassion begins. They smiled. For the first time, they no longer cared who had written it, because they finally understood its meaning. Love doesn't grow through perfect explanations. It grows through daily choices. Choosing patience, choosing honesty, choosing forgiveness, choosing to stay present even when life becomes difficult. Weeks later, the two of you returned to a place from your childhood, a quiet park, an old tree, a simple bench where you once sat alone wondering whether anyone truly understood you. You smiled softly. So much has changed. Your soulmate looked around before answering, Nope, the place stayed the same. You changed. Then they gently took your hand. I used to wonder why you felt different. Now I understand. You aren't different because you're perfect. You're different because you never stopped caring. Those words touched your heart more deeply than either of you expected. For years, perhaps you had wondered whether your sensitivity was a weakness, whether caring too much made life harder, whether your kindness would ever be appreciated. In that moment, you finally received your answer. Kindness was never your weakness. It was your greatest strength. Before leaving the park, your soulmate quietly made one final promise. I may never understand every chapter of your past. I may never know every silent battle you've fought, but I promise I'll never stop learning who you are, and I'll never take your heart for granted. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't discovering a hidden secret. Sometimes it's finally feeling seen. So if this message has found you today, perhaps it carries a gentle reminder. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to explain why your heart loves deeply. The right people won't admire you because you're mysterious. They'll cherish you because you're genuine. And perhaps someone somewhere is already beginning to see the parts of you that you've quietly carried alone for years. If this message resonated with you, take it as a reminder to keep choosing kindness. Because even when the world doesn't always notice, love does. And the people whose lives you touch may never forget the light you brought into their darkest moments. Your story isn't defined by the pain you've survived. It is defined by the hope you continue to give. And maybe that has been your greatest purpose all along.